Hi, I'm Drew Conry-Murray from the Packet Pushers. We're here at Gluware Intent 19. Joining me is Ethan Banks. He's Packet Pushers co-founder and podcast host extraordinaire. Our guests are Don Seiler. He is VP of Strategic Accounts at Gluware. And our very special guest is Jamie Hughes, Infrastructure Architect at Terracon. Jamie, thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about how Terracon is using Gluware, talk a little bit about your automation journey, and then get into some demos about how you're actually using the technology. So to get us started, tell us about Terracon. What does the company do? How big is it?
So Terracon's an engineering firm, a little over 5,000 employees. Basically, we cover continental United States. We have roughly about 160 sites today. I'm fairly new to the organization, been there about a year roughly, and one of the challenges really struggling with is, we have probably about 700 devices, and, keeping the config consistent. How do we, keep all the OSs in line, take care of the vulnerabilities. So we're here, like I said, to discuss Gluware and how that's helped us.
I like that you're new to the organization and they said, here, you figure out this automation thing.
Well, actually, that was my push, because one of the problems, like I said, I'd worked on this before and used Prime Infrastructure in the past, and so I was kind of looking for a new tool. One of the problems I had with Prime Infrastructure, it was really intensive in resources. It was not intuitive, going and trying to do, we were doing checks on this thing, and, it would take me forever to go write all these commands and stuff, and I was like, there's got to be a better way.
So what were you looking for in an automation tool that you weren't getting from Prime or other places that you looked?
Well, one of the big things is I didn't want to have to go learn like a whole programming language. A lot of the tools I looked at, you had to do Python, you had to go, like you said, I've got some other guys, operation groups, and I need these people to be able to go pick something up and be able to deploy it. It needs to be simple to use.
So you didn't want to get into a whole bunch of retraining and knowledge engagement to get this off the ground.
Oh,
you just
exactly.
wanted to start.
Like you said, and and that's the perfect thing I think about Gluware is, like they were saying, like, you got the username as a simple thing. We did, some of the first things we pushed out, NTP, syslog, logging. One of the problems we had in the data centers is, the time was off on all the devices. I go to troubleshoot an issue and I'm sitting there trying to make a spreadsheet of, what time zone am I in on this one, and, map all that back to troubleshoot a problem. It's terrible.
Let me catch you up on something, though. You said it's not hard to learn, you can get it going quickly, but yet we were looking at a demo a little bit ago that looks like there is plenty of things to learn in the interface. So is the idea that, I can just pick and choose a few things to get started with and still make use of the product? I don't have to learn the whole thing, I guess, is where you're going.
Yeah, and I guess that's the piece, and I'm not going to say, it definitely, I've spent probably 3 or 4 months now working with the product. So if you look at it, it is kind of intimidating. And the piece about it is, though, you can learn a little bit at a time. Yeah. So I think that's the thing that helps with that a lot. Is you don't have to go in and, like some of the stuff they're doing with variables, a lot of times people have static configs. So you can literally take those, paste those, your regular CLI commands that you're used to and be like, here's my output I'm going to get.
And something that they had talked about earlier was how you can come to it doing what you already do. It's not asking you to essentially do anything new. Is that correct?
And that's true. Like you said, that's a lot of the thing that I find very powerful about it is, if I want to take and put a couple NTP servers and they're static in nature, I can literally just hard code those in that in the command line. It's something that my operation teams, that's the thing they do today. So if I give that them and have them put that in there, they could do that.
Okay. So one of the key use cases now you're using it for, the two things, standardizing configurations and OS upgrades.
Yeah. So that was the initial. One of the problems with our branch sites. And that's another feature about Gluware, is one of the first thing was to help with inventory. Since I was new at the organization, what do we have? What kind of equipment do I have? What models do I have? What versions of code do I have? It really helped me with that, because I was able to go, they had pretty good monitoring on the devices. So I was able to export out our monitoring tool and import all those devices into Gluware. And then it helped me, though, find out that, at our branches, we have 160 sites. I'm running 70 different versions of code. For three different pieces of equipment.
So it helped you discover the truth, but also put you back on your depression meds.
A little bit.
But I think that's also a core feature, and that's where you start, is with this inventory as the first thing you do.
Yeah, and so that helped me out a lot. And then Terracon, one of the other things, they grow a lot with M&As. with acquisitions. Okay. So one of the pieces we're on track probably this year to, we have 160 sites. We're probably going to add 20 to 30 sites. It's going to be a big year for us. Well, one of the problems that poses is, like you said, the versioning of the software. How do I get better at those things? Just the base config stuff, syslog time, username, passwords, AAA, banners, getting all those security things on there, getting them consistent. So, I think a lot of other people have kind of looked at this as brownfield, but in this case there, we started doing a little bit more greenfield in that case for our M&A because that was a big struggle for us. So we're pushing out that base config to all those new sites.
So I've been in this scenario before, but had to do it by hand, where I walked into an environment and a lot of the device configurations were not standard. They were unpredictable depending on what device it was. When you have to do that stuff by hand, something as simple as NTP, you have to manually look at them, see what NTP servers might or might not be there, remove the ones you don't want, and then add the ones you do. How did Gluware handle that specific situation when you got stuff on there you don't want and stuff on there that you do? It's not all net new.
Yeah, I think that's a huge benefit because, like you said, that's exactly the problem is you give 5 different people a task in operations and you're going to come up with 5 different answers to solve that problem. Now, they might all work, but like you said, when you go back and you have 150 sites that are like that, the NTP, we'll take that, like I said, your example there. The cool thing about it is you tell it what you want it to look like. So one of those servers might be on there, but I've got 3 others that are broken or those IPs don't exist in the network anymore. So, and I've added 2 new ones. So it will literally go on there and be, here's my 3 NTP servers. It will look on there, okay, to get to this, I can leave this one, I can remove these 3, and I add these 3. So it makes that, config remover real simple.
Actually, right, I've seen a demo of this, and it gives you an output ahead of time. You know what's going to get pulled and what's going to get added.
Yeah, that preview, and like I said, and that's one of the things, lab testing, we have a pretty extensive lab environment to do all the testing for this, and that's really helped out is because I can go do those connected previews on these devices and run those commands and be like, what's going to happen when I do these things? To understand how the engine works and get my comfort level so that when we go deploy, like I said, take baby steps on deploying the lab, and then I can go deploy a couple routers, and then when I go to, deploy to scale, I'm confident it's going to work.
So talk about that, I guess, in the context of standardizing around configurations. Before you even start pushing configs, how do you decide this is sort of our golden, what we're going to start with, our baseline, and then what was the differential that you went and discovered out there, and where are you in the process?
And like I said, one of those pieces is being new with the organization. A lot of that's just, okay, what's our current config? And then also trying to understand, where the business is at and what are the drivers, where we're going, and then, also leveraging my coworkers. What things do we need to add? And then, like I said, essentially we're taking our current config, in most cases modifying it, adding maybe some more security standards or doing some changes, and then that's what we're pushing out.
So this discussion wasn't just, a couple of network engineers deciding this is it. You had to bring in other folks in the organization?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the reasons that, like I said, I think that, we chose to do the new sites first. Because in that case, we're just taking current config, and I'm like, they have a pretty good handle on here's what we want it to look like. So that made it a much simpler in that because I don't have to bring in, for that, I don't have to have all these discussions and, all these other people involved because, like I said, that's going to take a lot of time.
And in trying to standardize, did you run into issues like, oh, there's this config in there that if I just eyeball it, I think I don't really need that, but, it's actually something that happens once a quarter, and if you pull it out, ooh, we just broke something.
And that's one of the pieces. We have a pretty extensive access list on our routers. So, and one of the unfortunate problems is there's a lot of unique variables in there. And so that initially caused a lot of problems right now. One of the things I've been using Gluware for, I didn't really think about using it this way, but the drift piece of it, I've actually been watching, I have all our devices in there now, and it spits out every day, hey, here's the changes that were made on the network today. So I've actually been kind of using that to go gauge, what are my operations guys doing today, that I don't realize they're doing?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so you haven't gotten to a place where you are forcing everyone to go through Gluware or some kind of an automation workflow in order to make changes. People can still make changes cowboy style.
Yep. Well, because we're kind of in that transition period. Gluware is not to the comfort level where, we don't have everything modeled. Like I said, we're working through those things, and it's more of new sites onboarding right now that we're using it for, and we're kind of testing the waters out. major change we're getting ready to roll out is QoS through there. But one of the things that, like you said, I'm seeing the cowboy style, but it's also helped me understand, what kind of issues and what are major problems we're facing today. And that, like you said, one of the big ones is that access list, because I can see they have to go add stuff. So I can tell that that's, users are calling in and saying, hey, I can't get to something. And, this is probably, burning, 4 to 8 hours of resources every time, that occurs. Mm-hmm. Because, help desk is trying to troubleshoot is more likely they're troubleshooting as a computer problem.
Okay. And is that that alerting or warning on a configuration drift useful when you're trying to troubleshoot a problem? Or at least track down what happened?
Yeah, it definitely, because like you said, I can go back and, I have it set up every day right now. It sends a report out, and I can be like, and then I can see we changed 10 devices today, or, 50 devices, or however many. And then I can go into the tool, and it actually, you can sort by and say, hey, what devices are changed from the golden standard?
Well, I'm going to guess that you can say we, but you can say it was Bob, and you know what he did and call that guy.
I was going to ask, is there like an alerting feature you can put just for one particular person that you know? But maybe that's too personal. So one of the other features that you're using this for is OS upgrades. Can you walk us through that use case?
Yeah. So one of the pieces that Terracon's been working on is, like you said, there's a lot more software as a service, and we've moved to Office 365. That's definitely changed the dynamic of our edge sites a lot, because now the internet access at the site, instead of just backhauling all the traffic, we put firewalls out at the sites. Well, one of the problems we really struggle with, you put firewalls out there. Well, now, before I get a vulnerability on ASA, I got to go update a couple data center firewalls. It's kind of a pain, but, now I have, 100 plus, firewalls that we need to go upgrade.
Right. What are these ASA vulnerabilities of which you speak?
Well, and that's the other thing. Like you said, the security team's coming back to me, and, they're like, you're not getting this done fast enough. I'm like, we just don't have the resources to be able to, manually push those out.
They're making the bugs faster than we can fix them.
So that's a good question. Then, are you able to work with the security team through Gluware in terms of staying on top of security releases or PCerts, or is that just your domain and they have their own tools for looking at it?
That's very new, so I don't think they've really logged into that and know that it exists. Maybe that's a good thing.
Okay.
Hopefully they're not listening.
And is it just all one? Is it all Cisco operating system that you're working on right now?
So
in terms of
today it's all Cisco. We have a few other things, but our main goal right now is that's 90% of our environment is Cisco. So we're trying to get that all automated and get all those things squared away first.
Is it a variety of different Cisco iOS families, software families, and so on?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you have one code-based work, but really it's a bunch of them.
It is. I mean, as far as hardware types, we have, like you said, we still have quite a few 1900 series routers, 2800 series routers, and then we have some 4Ks, 3Ks, just a bunch of different flavors.
Mm-hmm. Is there, can you, for instance, if for some reason you don't want to upgrade a particular operating system because maybe the code is buggy or because you're afraid of a change that's going to break something, can you sort of like in the system put a pin in it and say, let's give this 6 months and then come back to it, or anything like that? Or is it just, how does that work?
Well, typically what we've kind of done is, you can tie an image to, so they have those assemblies that you can tie to devices. So we'll actually go in there and we basically name our images like production or candidate production. So we those ones there that we're going to push out on limited basis, we'll kind of name them and pick, less critical places to push those out, and then we'll do our testing that way.
Okay. And do you have a lab as well that you test?
And we have a lab too. So normally, like I said, usually we'll throw all this stuff in laboratory first. If laboratory, looks good, there's no, routing or switching works in that regard, and then we'll put it out to smaller production sites.
So you've got a process chain you set up. Let's lab this first, test it out, and then slowly push it out.
Yep.
Through the rest. Okay. That's great. Do you have a sense of the overall impact on day-to-day operations of using automation now? Like, how would you compare before and after?
And like I said, we're fairly new on our journey in this case, but one of the pieces is the, building to get those new branch sites, operating system just all consistent. That's probably one of the things that really helped us out here at first. And like I said, the goal is I'm hoping here to be able to get all our locations to that same standard.
Okay. And in terms of the human element, what's the attitude around automation? On one hand, it can be a little scary because, with great power comes great responsibility. You can really break something. On the other hand, people may think this is automating my job away.
Yeah. And that's one of the things when I presented this, we have plenty of other tasks to work on. So, I definitely didn't, the ROI on this wasn't that we were going to be able to cut people. Like I said, we're continuing to grow a lot. So, I think one of the selling points is I don't think we're definitely not going to cut people, but it gives us the ability to support more sites and be more agile at it. So,
Well, how did the team internally react to this? Like you're buying a tool that's going to automate my job away. Has there been any negativity that way?
one of the pieces, I think there wasn't really too much negativity. They were just really curious, what's this going to do? And there was some curiosity, like you said, what kind of stuff are they going to be working on? But one of the pieces, when I start talking to them, like, look at all these tasks. I was like, name our task list out. I was like, we're not doing these last 10 things. I was like, we got plenty of stuff for you to work on. And I was like, how much, how fantastic is it going to be when the top ones, like you said, you go push out and config, you run into a nasty bug. Like we had, one where you were adding access list to a router and it would lock up. Well, when you have that many different versions of code, you're guaranteed, we're applying this out to a site. Yeah, hey, the first 20 went fine. We did site 21 and, if we do a change in the middle of the day, now that site went down for something that should have just been a very standard change.
I wanted to follow up on one other thing too. You mentioned ASAs, patching vulnerabilities. Are you also maintaining code and configuration on the ASAs using Gluware?
Not today, but that's one of the goals.
Okay. So if you said that before, sorry, I just want to.
No, and we didn't. Like I said, it's one of the things we've tested some in the lab with those pieces, but we have not pushed any of that stuff to production yet. So that's definitely one of our goals, though, too, because that's the other thing is, if you have that many sites, if we want to add an object. Just a simple thing is adding this, same object to, a couple hundred firewalls is not easy to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember working with your your Jason, your CIO, and you looking at the initiatives they even had for 19 and then in the 2020. It was really about helping just that agility of the team because Jamie's looking at, holy cow, we've got all this to get done plus the daily blocking and tackling we have to do, and it was really just helping them with his higher journeys to especially Azure and Office 365 that your team's aggressively rolling out. So.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for watching. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel to get more nerdy technical videos and also check out packetpushers.net where we have thousands of podcast episodes where you can go deep on networking and IT. Thanks everyone.